Baby's here. We had a little girl. I was 39 weeks and 3 days. Today, as I'm recording this, would have been my due date. So I'm going to share with you all about the birth of Kellyanne, our daughter, and also the answered prayers along the way as I struggled with a lot of fear and really prayed through this birth and pregnancy with all the fears surrounding actually going into labor and giving birth. So thanks for joining me, and let's jump right in. My Braxton Hicks really started around 20 weeks, and they remained daily for the rest of the pregnancy. At 33 weeks, I started to have a shift in how I felt, and I thought between 33 and 34 weeks, I thought I'm going to have this baby in the next 2 weeks. And the reason I share that is because I thought it was an intuition, and I thought I was right. But we can be wrong about these things because baby did not come until 39 weeks and 3 days. I did have some changes in the way I was feeling in those weeks, some changes in the way that the Braxton Hicks felt, some cramping in the front, some dull ache in the lower back, some changes in my restroom habits that made me all think this baby's coming soon. Decrease in appetite, increase in fatigue and baby movement. My last baby came at 37 weeks. So I really kind of had convinced myself this baby was going to be coming early too. And while she did come early, she did not come that early. So I share all that to say that we can be way wrong. Now at 35 weeks, I had kind of what I would call like a little bit of an early labor scare where I had to do a couple of days of bed rest to make it go away because I didn't want to have a baby that early. But during that time, it's okay. It caused my husband and I to really pray and think about how we would have this baby if I had her before 37 weeks because my midwife could not attend a home birth at 37 weeks, prior to 37 weeks. And after praying about it, we felt that being at 35 and a half weeks, we could do, and beyond that, we would do an unassisted home birth. And that really played into the piece we had later when my midwife didn't end up making the birth on time. Nothing crazy exciting to report for 36 and 37 week mark other than things just kind of leveling off. I had thought the baby dropped the week before, but what I learned is that she actually didn't drop until about 2 weeks later. And there was a really clear picture that I took that just showed, wow, I was definitely wrong. The baby did not drop at 35 weeks. Baby dropped now, which I think was around 37 and a half weeks. My Braxton Hicks did start to go into the evening at 36 weeks, and I had my first night of all-night contractions, but they were just Braxtons. They were just tightening and no pain or discomfort of any kind. The nights did start to become difficult, and I was a little bit restless around 37 weeks. Started to feel kind of that insomnia where I would wake up for a few hours at a time. Just like, what do I do with myself? I feel wide awake. And then at 38 weeks, nothing major really happened. The contractions did start to feel a little different. As I can best describe it, maybe just more effective. Not so much like the regular Braxton Hicks, but actually something was happening. They were doing something to help me with labor. At 38 weeks and 5 days, I had my first night of crampy contractions, and that was January 1st. And then at 38 weeks and 6 days, I lost what I believe was my mucus plug. Not 100% sure. At 39 weeks, on January 3rd, I had my second night of crampy contractions. And I still slept 8 hours, but I did do some contraction counting that day, or that evening, and I'll show you the screen. They were 5 minutes apart most of the day. And baby was born just 3 days later. So just to go to the next day on January 4th, I texted my best friend and I said, hey, I'm feeling labory. So my midwife appointment went great that day. The baby was in a good position, LOA. And then I had some changes in my contractions that felt promising. And here's some contractions that I timed for that day. And funny story, my sister texted me that day and said, I'm 95% sure that it's a boy. I know she's dressed in boy hand-me-downs, Stephanie, but you were wrong, okay? January 5th, the day before she came, Was a very slow and quiet day. I just did regular life. We did school, we did chores, we did all the things, and the contractions just kind of slowed and stopped. So now we're at January 6th. I'm 39 weeks and 3 days. The night before, I had all these contractions. So the next morning I messaged my sister and my best friend that I had consistent, deep, crampy, menstrual-like contractions that take serious breathing to get through. They were 10 minutes apart. I was sleeping between them, but as I would wake, I would have to really breathe through these contractions. I was trying to find joy and peace and just kept running into fear, so I was asking for prayer for that from my sister and my best friend. So here's the screenshot of the contractions, and I texted my husband and asked him if he could just please take the day off because I felt like today was the day. If not, it would be tomorrow. So at 7 a.m. I texted my midwife about the intensity of the contractions and that now they were kind of spacing out as I was taking a bath. And I explained the contractions to her as cramping in the front. It was all in the front, but it was still like this dull wraparound, but definitely not back labor, which is something I was really concerned I would have this time as I had at my last 2 pregnancies. And the next video I'm going to do is probably going to be talking about all the things I did to help make this an easier birth. And one of them being baby positioning to make sure I didn't have that back labor again. And as you heard before, just lots of prayer. At 7:30, she advised that I would get more rest, and I'm so glad that I did. It was hard for me because I thought, 4 to 5 hours of sleep, that's not that bad. I don't know if I can go back to sleep, but I listened to her. I had some food, some drink, took a couple Tylenol, which is really rare for me, and then I went ahead and took a children's chewable Benadryl and just went to sleep for like an hour and 15 minutes. At 9:30, I woke up. I did the miles circuit, but I did like a shortened, lazy version just to kind of get the baby in the right position. You can look that up. It's really good for getting your baby in the optimal birthing position. And also some people think it induces labor. I don't. I think it's way too gentle for that. Then I sent this text to my sister and best friend. Was able to get more rest this morning. Last night was intense. I'm so grateful for your prayers. I'm about to get up and start to get more active. It will stop or slow my contractions if it's not real labor. It will most likely engage baby more and increase if it's real. At 11:45, I had some blood-tinged discharge, and that was when I really thought, oh, okay, now in my mind, I'm thinking, am I crazy? Should I have asked my husband to take the day off? But once I saw that, I realized, okay, I'm obviously dilating. This is how my body presents labor within the next 24 hours or so. And so I just told my husband, hey, I'm probably going to go into labor for sure within the next 24 hours. I didn't even think I was in labor at this point, or I guess I thought I was in early labor, but I didn't think it was going to get baby out anytime soon. Boy, was I wrong. I'm going to show you a screenshot of some contractions that I timed around noon, just so you can see where I was at about that time. At 12:30, my mom left with the kids, and Amnesty, as she was leaving, my oldest daughter, she whispered to my grandma. I keep saying my grandma, my mom. I just heard Mom say that she wiped and there was blood. I think that means baby's coming soon. So she was excited for that. So they left. They went over to a friend's house and just left Dusty and I to be at home and to kind of have some peace and just labor and just welcome this day with whatever came with it, even if we didn't get a baby that day. The contractions were very, very manageable. I wasn't needing counter pressure. I was still able to talk through them. We went for a walk after a little more movie. We went for a walk. I want to say it was probably around 1:30, 2 o'clock. So when we got back from our walk, I cleaned the whole house and we watched a little bit more of the movie. By then it was probably close to 3. On the walk I had 3 contractions. We were maybe 10 minutes apart each, and I would pause through them, but they really weren't a big deal. I had contractions as I was cleaning. Again, not a big deal. I would just stop and sway over the countertop. And I sent my best friend a text message that just basically was like, I think I'm still in early labor. And I was just feeling discouraged because I thought, boy, if this is early labor and I'm like 10 hours or more from birth, this is going to get so much worse. And little did I know, I was less than 2 hours from giving birth. So I'm going to show you this screenshot of these two awesome friends from church. Actually 3, but I don't think Melissa responded much that day. Danny and Abby sent me some scripture that I really needed in the midst of my discouragement. And then Abby made the suggestion that maybe it's not early labor. I don't even remember seeing that message. In fact, I found it for the first time today. So Abby, you were right. So my friend Danny asks me, how far apart are they? Are they still 10 minutes apart? So at that point, I start timing them. So 60 to 90 minutes out. I mean, this is pretty crazy because it's so spaced out in time. And I'm feeling discouraged because I'm thinking I've got a long ways to go. And then this is 1 hour before birth. And this is when things start to pick up in intensity and went from being kind of manageable on my own to being manageable with my husband's help with counter pressure. At 4 o'clock was the first time I realized that I was getting closer. They were obviously getting a little more intense, still manageable. But I remember asking Dusty, at what point do we know to set up the birth pool? And then the very next contraction was 1 minute later. So that was our sign. That's when things got really busy. So the next 40 minutes before birth, mind you, obviously we have no idea. We have 40 minutes left. Here's the screenshot of the contractions. Dusty's running around setting everything up. He's doing everything. He's the star of the show. He's trying to fill the birth pool with air, the different chambers that need air. He's trying to put the liner on. He's never used this type of birth pool and liner before. He's trying to fill it with water. He's helping me through contractions with some counter pressure. At this point, I'm still very calm, but he's still helping me, and he's very busy. He's getting me little comfort measures like cold washcloths and snacks, and then he's running back to the birth pool and trying to set it up, and he is just so calm the whole time. My sister texts me at 4:20 or Facebook message, and I say it's intense, but it's manageable. And that is really encouraging because that is literally 32 minutes before I give birth. So I call my friend Casey because my husband is very busy and we haven't called the midwife yet. We're thinking we still have time, we've got hours, but we need an extra set of hands. And I'm texting Casey in between contractions anyway. And so she pulls her daughter from gymnastics, rushes over. And as we're waiting, the things that are going through my head are, I guess, just a lot of peace, but also I'm wondering how much longer is it going to be? Is it going to get worse? How am I going to cope with this? I'm praying, I'm saying affirmations out loud, like God is with me, He's heard my prayers, Jesus bore the cross with joy, I'm going to give birth to this child with joy. And I'll show you the last 20 minutes before birth. You can see my contractions timed. I'm thinking we still have hours to go because the contractions are so manageable. They're just requiring a little bit of counter pressure. They're maybe 50 seconds to a minute long, and they're still, generally speaking, spaced 3 or 4 minutes apart. I was pretty calm. Dusty was speaking affirmations, simple ones like loose, let go, baby, breathe the baby down. The room was just really quiet. It was just he and I. And at 4:40, my water breaks. And what happened was I just felt like this pushy sensation. And I had it the contraction before. So Dusty called the midwife the contraction before and said, hey, she's sounding kind of pushy. And I'm a little surprised because this seems really, 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 really early to be pushy. And the next contraction, I just decided to kind of give in to the pushing sensation. I'm feeling nauseous. I have a vomit bucket in front of me. And I realized maybe I don't need to vomit. Maybe I need to start doing some grunting and pushing. So I did for the next contraction, and my water broke. And I'm on my hands and knees over a puppy pad, like a Chuck's. I would have to say that at that exact moment, I realized this baby is coming very, very soon. I stopped Dusty in his tracks. He's running around still trying to set up the pool. And I say, hey, he looks at me and I say, we're going to be having this baby before the midwife gets here. And he says, okay. So he just comes to me, and the next contraction, Casey walks in. And I just looked up at her, and I was actually in the middle of a grunty. I wouldn't even really call them contractions anymore. It was just sort of like a wave of energy and then grunting and pushing. I didn't say anything to her. I was right in the middle of it. And then when she sat down on the floor next to me and put her hand on my back, I turned to her and said, hi, Casey. And she said later that that surprised her because she wasn't expecting a baby to come out anytime soon, but she busted out her camera and started doing some recording so she could catch some of the labor before eventually she would video the baby being born. I asked Dusty to check my purple line to see if I had dilated. If you don't know what a purple line is in labor, you can Google it. My midwife told me about it, and I, according to my line, did not dilate. So that was interesting. Just fun fact, it's not always accurate. Because I pushed the baby out 12 minutes after my water broke, so clearly I was very dilated. So Casey had walked in at 4:48. At 4:48 and a half, I was saying, hi, Casey, because I was done with that grunty session, and I was doing great. It was 4 minutes to birth, and my pain level was very manageable. I wasn't yelling like I had with my past births. I was fairly calm. My husband was speaking affirmations over me. I was able to express exactly how I needed counter pressure. And it really was not that bad. It was totally manageable. Hi, cutie. She's so cute. Love this baby. Can't turn her. Ooh. And so she starts recording, and 2 minutes into the recording, I haven't expressed this to anyone, but the baby's crowning. My midwife's on speakerphone because she knows that my water broke. And you hear me say in the video, which I'll share soon, head. And Dusty goes, he's behind me. I'm on all fours. Casey's holding the camera to my right. And he goes, head? And then he turns to the phone, head. And then he turns back to me, and I'm waiting for the next surge. And the midwife goes, head? And he goes, do you feel the head? And at that point, I'm irritated. And I said, yes. Yes. Head.
Head. Head. Yeah. Feel the head on?
Yes.
Feeling the head.
I don't know. It was yeah, a lot of questions for me in that moment. But the next surge that I had, I wouldn't even really call it the Ring of Fire. I've had the Ring of Fire. I found out later I did not tear, so maybe that is just, it was a better position for me. Baby was in a better position, but it was definitely a lot of uncomfortable stretching. I wouldn't choose to do that every day of my life, but I could definitely do it again. No problem for another birth. It was so much better than my last two vaginal births, because obviously my first two babies were C-sections. So this is my third VBAC and my second home birth. So then with the next surge, I just reached down and waited and guided the baby down to the ground. I really didn't have to push her out at all. Once my baby's heads come out, the body just comes out without any effort, which is really nice. The head is the hardest part. And we just sat there on the living room floor and marveled at what had just happened. We had no idea I was that far along. And suddenly I'm holding this baby in my arms, and it was the easiest birth. I don't even know. It's over. My baby's here. I did it. We did it. Praise Jesus. I am so excited to share with you all of the ways that I had prayed and that God had answered my prayers, and all of the things that I did that I felt like the Lord led me to in research and in preparation for the birth of this baby. And I'll do that in another video. But after a few minutes of sitting on the living room floor and holding the baby, about 3 minutes after she was born, my husband asked to look. We wanted to see if it was a boy or a girl, and we realized we had our little Kellyanne. She's named after my mom, Kelly. And we kind of waddled our way over to the bed, and I just laid there and waited for the birth team and just snuggled my baby. They showed up about 20 minutes later, and it was just beautiful. It was exactly what I had prayed for. I honestly thought always birth had to be this horrible, painful thing. And it wasn't. It was not only not really painful, but it was also really peaceful. Summing up the experience, I would say that one of my biggest prayer requests was for a gentle birth and for it to be fast, to be in the daytime. All those things happened. For an easy labor and end of pregnancy, that definitely happened. And also for courage to have more babies. And I can honestly say, that is the cutest yawn. I can honestly say that I feel very, very much like I could do this all over again. And that was not my mentality going into this pregnancy. So I know this wasn't really quick, but thank you for joining me. And I hope to update you soon with a birth video, and also the video of telling my mom that her grandbaby was named after her. Thank you for joining me. Bye. It's almost like it didn't even happen. I'm just like, what?